Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Women in Insurance. We are delighted to welcome you here. Happy Friday. For those of you who are new, we are the Women in Insurance Initiative. We are delighted to welcome you to our community. This is a safe space, everybody. This is a place where we can learn and grow, have a bit of fun together. We're proud to be a part of Million Women Mentors and STEM Connector, two incredible organizations lifting women and careers in STEM. Two of the things that I love to say as the chair of WII, our organization is all about action and insurance is STEM. It's not we want to be STEM, we are STEM. And we do care about this insurance industry of ours. It's an amazing community. We've created a bond of care and trust, and we're securing our best futures together. And that's what this is all about. So many of you have heard about the work of our amazing Red Hot Catalyst Committee led by Laura Deutscher. We are thrilled with the action, the sound bites, and the actionable takeaways that they're sharing and we're sharing with the industry. And we're all catalysts, and we're all part of Laura's Catalyst Committee. We are focused on a few things, but I want to call them out because we're talking about the groundswell around apprenticeship in insurance. This is the future of insurance, and it is an apprenticeship business. Of course, we're all about mentorship and micro mentorship, peer mentorship, different gender mentorship. It is all about what kind of shoes you need to wear for what you need. Find your mentor like you find your shoes. You want to be able to pick the right mentor for the right occasion. We're about the talent pipeline and about putting the big spotlight on STEM in insurance. So reach out to us if you want to learn more about WII and be a big part of what we're doing and making things happen. I want to share two great initiatives that are coming up this spring. Mark your calendars for May 16th in honor of Mother's Day. We're having a webinar with a panel of amazing women discussing what it's like to be a working mother and how they are finding their harmony and balance with career and motherhood. It's a topic that's near and dear to my own heart, and I will be there with you on May 16th. We also have a wonderful active partnership with RISE. And what's so exciting about this partnership is that our organization has access to incredibly experienced senior people who are looking for opportunities to mentor, to apprentice with others. And it is a duality. Mentors and mentees, they learn from each other. There is more to come on this, but RISE, thank you so much for your leadership, and we are honored to be on your team. And now, everybody, let's get to the main event. Let's get to Beth and Patti. As we all know, women have made and are making a powerful impact in shaping the future of insurance. One of those women who has made such an impactful contribution on so many of us, myself included, is Patti Harman. She is editor-in-chief of Digital Insurance. She has a beautiful 30-year career as a journalist covering the insurance industry. And today, she's going to share with us very interesting perspectives. She's going to make us think. She is going to make us better. This is a rare opportunity to turn the camera on her. She's always turning the camera on us. But for us to have this chance, Patti, to turn the camera on you, this is really special. And talk about special. Leading this discussion is Beth Jarecki, CEO of Omnia Paratus, a global communications consultancy and one of our WII leaders and champions. What I will say about these two amazing women is that their friendship and their bond is something I've had the pleasure of watching I've seen how they've supported each other, how they've cared for each other. This is leadership, mentorship, and lift in action. So, with that, I'm going to turn the mic over to you, Beth, and say a very warm welcome to Patti. Thank you for being with us, and let's go on with the show.
Thank
Mark.
you. Thanks so much, Margaret. That was so lovely. Really appreciate it. And hi, Patti. Great
Hello.
to be with you.
I know, this is fun. It's very strange to be on the other side, though.
Yes, yes. So just and I appreciate that intro, Margaret. Just to give everyone background on this because you know how we know each other. My firm is a strategic communications firm, which means I specialize in media relations and helping my clients speak with the media. And so over the last 25 years, what I do, a lot of what I do is really I'm on the quiet side. I'll sit and listen to media interviews and I've learned so much. And what I'm always telling people is that if you really want to know what's going on what's going on in any industry, you know, talk to the people in insurance. They're seeing what's really going on. They're on the front lines. And so Patty's also been on the front lines watching everything all these years. So we've had a really great working relationship, and I've been lucky to get to know Patty. And it's a great community. The insurance journalists really know so much about what's going on in the industry, and it's exciting, like Margaret said, to sort of turn the camera and have this conversation with Patti and hear about, listen to what you're hearing, listen to about your conversations. You're speaking to CEOs throughout the organization and throughout the industry, and you've been speaking to CEOs all these years, so you really have the inside scoop.
Well, yes, I do a little bit. And then I'm really privileged to have that sort of access to individuals in throughout the industry because what I see is sometimes a little bit different than what the general public sees. And
Yeah,
so just trying to kind of shape that narrative so that it's accurate,
yeah.
because sometimes people are like, oh, it's this, and this. It's like, well, no, actually.
Yeah, you hear it different. So what we're going to do today, just so what everyone knows what to expect, I'll give you sort of our topic rundown. We're going to talk about Patty's career. We're going to speak about women in leadership, of course, talk about the future of insurance and technology, and talk about the next generation of leadership. These are all things that Patty has so much experience with. And please, I saw everyone saying hello. So hello, everyone. And I love the chats and the hello from New Jersey. That's where I am. And and Rhode Island, I saw some all the places. It's super fun to see you. So please chat along if you'd like. And if you have questions, please drop your questions in the chat. And we'll definitely have some time at the end to take questions. So as they come up, you don't have to wait till the end. You could just drop them in the chat and we'll answer them at the end. So let's get started. So Patti, everyone says they fell into insurance, that people don't like grow up saying, I want to be an insurance journalist. So how did it happen? Maybe you want to be a journalist. That's a lot of
That
kids want to be a journalist and a writer for sure.
Yeah, that I did. Actually, I was a mass communications major and kind of fell into journalism from that perspective. But I actually started in the disaster restoration industry, covering that. And because of that intersection between property and casualty, and the fact that insurance companies pay for the restoration of anything after there's some sort of a major issue, that was kind of how it became part of my reporting. And while I understood the P&C aspects of insurance, when I moved over full time into the insurance industry, I still had to learn about workers' comp and life insurance and specialty insurance, a little bit about health insurance, that sort of thing. And so a lot of the things that I have done over my career have just kind of helped build the bridge and give me a tremendous foundation for what I'm doing now.
Yeah, and I know you've covered lots of different areas of insurance, but definitely on the claims side, you spent some time as an editor of Claims Magazine, and that's it's definitely an interesting aspect of insurance because that's really when as you know, that everything launches into gear when
Yep.
you really have to be there for your insurance and step up. And so what did you find interesting about the claim space, and what are some of the big takeaways over your time covering that?
Well, claims is definitely where, we buy insurance for when the bad things happen. And so when a claim is filed, that's kind of where the rubber meets the road for insurance carriers. And when people say, oh, insurance is so boring, I'm like, oh my goodness, y'all have no idea how interesting and exciting it is because, we hear policyholders or might complain about working with claims professionals, or contractors might have conflicts with them as well. But the reality is that the people that work in the claims space they want to do a good job. They want to make sure that policyholders get what they're entitled to and are put back to, that pre-loss condition as
Yeah.
much as possible. Nobody does this to get rich. They do it because they want to make a difference and really have an impact in people's lives. And, when we look at how technology is changing things, the claims space is probably one of the biggest areas that I've seen major changes in terms of, think about, drones and, just
Yeah.
how they have changed how we get information. So there's a lot happening in that space too. So I like it because it's always new and different. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And now you're seeing the technology and that
Yes.
it's kind of coming
Mhm.
full circle. So that's so
Yes,
interesting.
definitely.
I
Yeah.
know. And just more on claims. I mean, in our office, we kind of function a little bit like a newsroom. We're always watching what's going on in the world and thinking what's the next risk. And Nancy, my colleague, and I joke around that I remember early on, in kind of January of 2020, saying like, what's this coronavirus? Should we be talking to our clients about that? Is that going to be a risk? And,
Yeah.
and so that's really, we just think about risk all the time. And when these things happen, we're thinking about them early on. And when these things are happening, we're really digging in. So would love just to hear about your experience covering some of the most significant crisis over the last 30 years.
There have been a number of them, and it's interesting. You were talking about the coronavirus. I was one of the first reporters to flag that as an issue for the insurance industry
Mm,
and started
mhm.
asking questions like, it's going to affect this, this, and this. And then I started watching the wave and seeing how it was affecting business
Yeah.
interruption, and everybody was just focused on the health part. But there were a lot of other aspects in that. And probably the most significant event that I covered was 9/11.
Mhm.
And I was literally on the ground in New York City 2 weeks after the towers fell. I went through with several restoration firms, and I think that was when I really had a tremendous appreciation for both what the restoration industry does and the role of the insurers
Yeah.
whenever there's some sort of a major event like that. And I remember I I stayed at the Waldorf Astoria because rent or the price of a room was like next to nothing because no one was
Oh,
traveling or going anywhere.
yeah.
And I wanted to be far enough away that I had a little bit of space because I knew what I would be seeing was hard. It was not at all what I was expecting. But when I got off of the metro in Battery Park, there was a huge tank. And like just walking up from the metro, I was like, oh wow, like it was just totally different.
Yeah.
Battery Park was totally quiet. And then there were checkpoints everywhere, and I saw some interesting things. I climbed up into the spires of Trinity Church,
Mm,
and I was the only woman going up there. And let me tell you, as I'm going up 250 feet up a very narrow staircase, it's like,
yeah.
all right, just put one hand up. Don't look down. Don't look down.
Yeah.
You do not need to be rescued from here because
Yeah. Yeah. And plus
those
there's so many emotions in that too.
there really were.
Yeah.
And I stood in the parson's office at St. Paul's Chapel, and he overlooked the towers. And so I had this bird's eye view of all of this destruction. And when you start thinking about that and interviewing people and asking questions, I was just acutely aware that I was covering history then. And
Yeah.
it was like this is not ever anything that I would want to do, but there were stories to be told. And I
Mhm.
wanted to share that. And I wanted people to understand that. And even with words and pictures and some audio that I took, I just felt like it wasn't enough to kind of capture how big that was. I also had the opportunity to cover the flooding in Nashville in 2012. And I went through the Schermerhorn Symphony Center with the architect that built it and some of the engineers. And so I
Oh, wow.
learned how the building was put together. And I got to stand inside of a $4 million pipe organ. I remember texting my
Oh,
mom
wow.
going, "You will never believe where I was today," you know? So I have been some very interesting places. And then after Hurricane Sandy hit, especially through
Yeah.
New York and New Jersey, I was going through there. And, it was interesting that there were some places where I went and the company I was with, they were like, we have to call ahead and let security know that you're coming
Mhm.
because there are issues with looters and other problems. And
Mhm.
so everyone just wants to make sure that you're safe. Like when Hurricane
Yeah.
Katrina hit New Orleans, the magazine that I worked for, the Restoration Industry Association, and their members said to me specifically, "You may not come down here. You can interview us. We will send you pictures. It
Mhm.
is too dangerous. You can't be
Yeah.
here," which was interesting to me as well.
Yeah. I mean, so it's so interesting because I think that the industry, when you're talking about attracting talent to the industry, what you're hearing is that the next generation really wants to be part of making change and just obviously these are crises, these are,
Right.
people's lives,
Mhm.
these are big events. This is being part of history and you sort of walking alongside of people who, you wanted to do something, you wanted to tell the stories, but the people and you were alongside people in the insurance industry who also want to make change, help, do what they can in those situations. So it's
Mhm.
really, I think these are great stories to know, to hear, to hear and to continue to tell over the years, because this is, these are the things that we sadly, there will
Yeah.
be more of them. So
Yeah.
it's good to know
Exactly.
that,
Mhm.
that the insurance industry was there in those
Mhm.
situations and kind of took you along for the ride.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. So speaking about the ride, so one of the things Patty and I have chatted about over the years is just, what it was like for us early in our careers. I've told Patty stories about how I had my BlackBerry, at the park, and, and how I how I literally felt like a superhero, kind of wearing my mom costume when I dropped off my daughter and then coming home and putting on my work
Mhm.
costume. So my cape and everything. So we've chatted about that a lot. And just how things have changed. And we are both so happy that things have changed for women now because of all the
Extremely.
funny things. But it's good for everyone just to
Mhm.
think about those times and how
Yeah.
things have changed and how it's evolved. So I'd love for you to share some of your stories. I'm thinking on that, Patty.
Well, I am so excited to see that there is a much greater focus on work-life balance because what I will say was when I started, and I worked from home for 30 years. So when everybody was moving home for the pandemic, it's like, guys, it's not that big a deal. You're going to be spoiled and you will not want to go
You'll be
back.
okay.
Right, right, right. But, like I remember I have three kids and for my first one, I interviewed a mortgage banker at 9 o'clock that morning. I filed the story and I went into labor at 6 o'clock that evening. For my
Mm,
second one, I was launching a weekly newspaper and I worked right up until the last possible minute. And I was even like afterwards, like there, even though I wasn't in the office, I was still connected because I just launched this new newspaper and I had to be there. And then for my daughter, I had Braxton Hicks and I remember being in the
mm.
delivery room. I'm like, I think I'm in labor, texting to people. But now, women, things have changed, I think, considerably. And technology lets us work smarter and better if we
Mhm.
are willing to turn it off and give ourselves that break. And I think for a lot of us, that's hard to do, but that is all part of that work-life balance, I think. I mean, like last year I was in Italy and Greece, I was still connected,
Yeah, it's
you can't,
amazing.
you have to make that conscious effort. And one of the things here with my team that we do, and at first I was like, oh, that's interesting. Every day at 5 o'clock, somebody says, it's 5, have a great day, have a great evening, whatever. And we
Nice.
might keep working beyond that. But for me, it is a great reminder that it's okay to end your day now. Like,
Yeah,
you don't have to work until, and sometimes I do have to work weekends and nights and stuff, but I don't have to do it every day. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I'm seeing through multiple industries is that people are willing to step back. And I think that the pandemic equalized things for us. It was all right for people to hear your kids and your dogs and see your animals
yeah, for
and
sure.
all of those sorts of things because that's real life for
Yeah,
all of us.
yeah,
And
yeah,
all of a sudden, we don't have to balance it in quite the same way.
right.
It's all
Yeah,
right if you're at your kids' lacrosse games or basketball games or whatever. You can check
yeah,
your messages and
yeah.
then watch the game kind of.
Yeah. You don't have to focus so much on bribery anymore, like giving
Right.
the bowl of M&Ms in front of the TV. Don't speak. Yeah, yeah, they could go and run. It's really,
Yeah.
those are big memories.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so anyway, so for, yep, that's a silver lining. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And definitely
Definitely.
technology. And Patty is the editor-in-chief of digital insurance. So we're going to talk
Mhm.
about technology. And this is really definitely one of the ways technology has made a huge impact. So we have some stats about women in insurance. So women in insurance make up 59% of the insurance workforce.
Okay.
And 29%, I'm told, of C-suite roles are now filled by women, up from 17% in
Oh, that's
2015.
huge.
So, I mean, one of the things, Patty's definitely interviewed CEOs, on a weekly basis. She talks to the leadership in the industry. So would love to hear about some of the trailblazing women that you've met over the years, just highlighting some of the women, and the leaders. And if I would love just to hear about some of the stories that you could tell in that area.
So I think one of my favorites is Joan Woodward at Travelers. And if you all haven't had the opportunity to hear her speak, she does a podcast and a lot of other things.
Oh,
And
okay.
she spoke at our Women in Insurance Leadership Conference a couple of years ago. And I remember being in the green room and we are trading stories like, well, this is what it was like when I was having kids. And, just her experiences were very similar to mine because there was a period of time where if you were a woman, you were afraid to tell your boss that you were pregnant, that you were going to go out on maternity leave. I mean, people were very concerned about what impact that would have on their careers and that sort of thing. And so she is this tremendous trailblazer who has done things not only in the insurance industry, but in the financial industry as well. Mary Boyd, who's the CEO of Plymouth Insurance, is another great example. Valerie Turpin at Arch Insurance, and Silsey Harris of Hanover Insurance, and Kathy Krantz of Pinnacle was the first CEO that I interviewed for my podcast here at Digital Insurance. And what impresses me about each of these women is that they've all taken a slightly different path, but
Mhm.
they had mentors, both men and women,
Yeah.
who helped them make wise decisions about their careers. They've been trailblazers in their with their own paths, and the
Yeah.
impacts that they have had will resonate for years to come. And they're very generous with their time, their talent, and helping other women along with their careers too. And that's a big part of it,
Yeah.
is that we have to be willing to encourage each other, lift each other up, make those connections, those introductions, because nobody gets to where you are on your own. Someone along the way gave you a helping hand, an important introduction, encouraged you, helped you pick up yourself after something, somebody kind of ripped you to shreds in a meeting or something like that. And we have to do that as women. And
Yeah.
I think that's our superpower.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I
No.
have to tell you, I have a lot, including you. I have a lot of these people on the call today, which makes which makes me feel good because you're absolutely right. It's so important to have community, and that's one of the reasons why I was so excited to have this conversation because I think, sharing this and even having you share of yourself and the things that it's so enriching for other people. So I love that. Thank you. So yeah, and we were thinking about, the qualities that you've observed. And I think so some of the qualities would probably be just the giving back and everyone took a different path.
Yeah. And they're really focused on helping other women. And whether it's in their
Yeah.
companies or in their communities, everybody that giving back part is really important. And think about it, ladies. We are very good multitaskers. Like we have learned how to balance family and entertaining and meetings and everything else. We also have a level of compassion, I think,
Mhm.
that makes us very intuitive leaders. And
Mhm.
I will say that our emotional intelligence is usually pretty well defined. So whether we're working in the office and we have a colleague who is dealing with either work or personal issues, we may be better attuned to that. And then just how we lead, I think, is a little bit different. Not that we can't stand toe to toe and really be very forthright in sharing our ideas and what we believe, but I think that level of compassion and empathy definitely works in our favor.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I majored in psychology, and I have to say that's definitely, I feel like that's been one of the most, just helpful things, in communications for sure. But yeah, no, I imagine that's wonderful that you've been able to really pick that up over the years and in the leaders that you've spoken with. And so, we read some of the stats, you've
Right.
seen women's roles evolving. Has that been exciting to sort of watch, women be appointed to CEO roles? How has
It
that
has
been for you?
It has been extremely exciting for me because one of the things I've always told my daughter is you have to use your powers for good. And so, as an editor, I feel like I have been given a platform and the opportunity, and I have chosen to use that to highlight women who are doing incredible things in their industries and giving them a voice and giving them the recognition because that is really important to me. I last week I was at the Climate Tech Connect conference in DC, and I met a woman that we had profiled her technology about a year ago. And this is a young woman under the age of 30 who is already the CEO of her own insurtech company
Oh, wow.
and is doing tremendous things in that space, um, helping homeowners identify if they have structure vulnerabilities on their properties and then how to address it. So, from an insurance perspective, all of a sudden, properties that could have been viewed as, oh, you are uninsurable, now it becomes, well, we can insure you if you do this, this, and this, because
Right.
if something happens, if there is a wildfire or a tornado or whatever it is, there are actions that can be taken to kind of help not completely stop it, but definitely mitigate the damage and help people get back to being whole ahead of time. And to have I see the note in the chat. It's Farah. It's yeah, it's Valkyrie Holmes, and it is just sitting down and talking to her. And it was so funny because a mutual friend told both of us, you need to talk to Pat. She told Valkyrie, you need to talk to Patty. And she told me, oh, you need to talk to Valkyrie. And we were standing somewhere, introduced ourselves, and it was like, boom, we were off and running because we knew that we had a lot in common and there were just things about this industry that we wanted to share. So that to me is really exciting, and seeing more women. I've interviewed a number of women in the STEM space, and I appreciate how their minds work and how smart they are and what they are able to do because I am a journalist because I have certain skill sets and they do not fall into the STEM area as such. And so seeing the impact that these women are having, how they are changing the future,
Yeah.
that is really exciting. And I just get to report on it. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that is amazing. I mean, and just thinking about it from just the convergence of, climate and
Hmm.
insurance and
Right. Yep.
technology and how bringing those things together is making
Yep.
change and there's so much opportunity,
Yes.
it's to make that change. And yeah, so that's definitely, and I know that's something I've been following closely over the years, being close to the insurtech community and watching women come into the industry as founders and coming up with innovative ideas. So I'm sure you're getting
Yep.
to meet some really interesting people all around in that area.
I am. And people are like, "Oh, why did you make the switch?" And it's like technology is where it's
That's
at
where
now.
it's at.
I mean,
Yeah.
that is the future of the industry. There are so many different kinds of technology out there. So,
Yeah, and that's why this organization, being part of Million Women Mentors and
mhm.
STEM Connector is like a
Right,
great way to
right,
connect all of that with
right,
insurance. So
right.
that's great. So let's just talk about like what's on the minds of the CEOs too. So let's get your scoop. So you're speaking with just in recent months,
Mhm.
you're speaking with CEOs, like what is the latest? Like what is, people everyone says like what's keeping you up at night? Someone in the insurance industry yesterday said to me, I don't have that luxury. He said, he said, he said, he said, I have to worry about everything.
Everything.
I was
Yeah.
like, you know what? That's so true. So I feel like, that's pretty common, but what are some of the things that you're hearing on people's minds now?
I think that the biggest thing is probably at this point, it's the implementation of AI, how they can do it safely. Because if you don't do it well, once your information and your data is in there and it's exposed, there's no way to call that back. So they're trying to figure out, they understand that it has a lot of possibilities. It's interesting to hear how different companies are testing it within what they call like a safe space, a
Yeah,
safe network within the company. And they are encouraging, Travelers is one of the companies that's doing this. They are encouraging people to experiment with it, try it, use it,
yeah,
become familiar with it.
yeah,
And then they're figuring out how to use it in a broader sense. I think nuclear verdicts have continued to be an issue because we're seeing those jury awards just continuing to climb into the tens of millions to hundreds of millions of dollars
yeah,
sometimes. And I think the last thing that keeps them up at night is the talent gap. And that's because there are so many people that are expected to retire within the next 5 years, and that same number of folks are not coming into the industry. And while technology can offset that a little bit, it's not going to totally, because
yeah,
insurance is still a business of relationships. I mean, you and I have known each other for quite some time.
yeah.
And and I think about other people. I'm speaking at a conference next week where I've known those people for 30 years.
Mhm.
And
Incredible.
there are just so many people involved in different areas. So it's becoming, I would say there may be other things that are keeping them up at night, but I would say that those are probably the biggest thing because I think that's like 400,000 people are expected to retire from the
Yeah,
industry.
it's
That's
amazing.
significant.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm excited. One of the things that does excite me are the number of colleges that have insurance-based curriculums now, especially in
Mhm.
the risk management
Yeah.
space. And anybody who's working in data science, I mean, there are a lot of different areas that will feed from college into the insurance industry.
Yeah.
And that's having a higher profile, I'll say.
Yeah. And I think like this group is definitely putting a lot of emphasis on educating, going to schools, going to
Mhm.
universities, and
Yes.
having talks about the opportunities. Like this talk, people
Yeah.
heard this talk, they'd be just
Yeah.
running to the insurance industry. So I do feel like that's so important. And if anyone wants to learn more about that, we definitely have some materials on our website about, how to go in and give a presentation at a school, because I think that's so important.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
just want
because
to go back.
everybody thinks, oh, I'm going to answer the phone. And let's like, no, there's so much more than that.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I know. So you mentioned AI, and I know
Mhm.
not everyone on this, there's definitely some STEM people here, but just people from the industry. So, given, your time at all these
Mhm.
conferences, chatting with people about AI, like so specifically for insurance, what do you think people on this call should be doing as it relates to AI or thinking about, or
I
how
I
should they
think
think
you
about it?
definitely, if you haven't used it yet, and you've probably encountered it and not realized it, but you have to play with it. You have to become familiar with it. It can change how some of us do our jobs. I was sharing with Beth earlier that when it first came, so I have had some experiences with AI, and I was going out of town and I was trying to type a text message to somebody, and AI on my phone kept changing it, and I'm going, no, AI, that is not what I wanted to say. That's not what I typed. And so the people on the shuttle are looking at me, and I said, I'm sorry, it's AI. We're having words, and they all just laughed. But the reality is, we have to use it. We have to figure out how it can work for us best, and even as a journalist, it's like we've talked about this internally with our teams, is like, is AI going to take over and end up doing our jobs? Well, no, because we still have to determine what is news, what's valuable, all of that. AI might refine how we say it. I've used it to help me, like if I feel like I'm in a rut with my writing using the same terminology, I'll run a paragraph through AI just to see if it comes up with something different. So in that sense, I think that it's important. The amount of data that it can synthesize is very important for the insurance industry. And I interviewed two physicians from Munich Re about how they're using it in terms of diagnosing cancers, and how they are able to take vast amounts of data and come up with a more precise type of diagnosis. And think about times, if you've ever been sick where you went to 5 different doctors or 6 different doctors trying to identify what was going on, this could change that, I think,
Yeah.
significantly going forward. So just being able to synthesize, and one of the doctors I interviewed, he said, AI has the ability to see things
Yeah.
that we can't see with the naked eye. And so the ability to use it in that sense, I think, is pretty exciting, because it's changing outcomes for individuals. It's changing their ability to get insurance coverage, because maybe it's not what somebody thought, or maybe something is diagnosed earlier so that you're able to be cured, or at least it's in remission, or whatever it is, but
Yeah.
it allows that insurance coverage and just is changing the quality of life for a lot of people.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
amazing. I mean, I think you see it all. I mean, I think that's something, things that could change people's lives, their health, the climate, people, all these, every aspect of life, really. So you see all the cool stuff.
I do.
Tell us, and then you just told us some cool stuff. So what do you see as sort of the innovation to watch? We're all, AI is something people know about, but what is something maybe is not on like the tip of the tongue that we should know about, what that we should be watching or we should be reading about?
I think, well, it's interesting to me because we're competing in the insurance industry. We're competing against companies like Meta and Amazon and Google and all of that sort of thing. But I think something that we should be watching, and this is an area that I'm doing a number of stories on, is the Internet of Things and how it changes what goes on in our houses. Because if you consider that the largest and the most expensive claims are usually water related, there's
Yeah.
technology now that can either shut off your hot water heater or at least identify a leak before when it's just on the floor versus when it's 7,000 gallons of water rushing out your front door. And there are other types of technologies like that, and we're seeing it more and more. And a lot of the carriers are adopting those, and they're even just giving them to their policyholders, saying, just plug this in your house. Just use this, because the way to mitigate it's the ability to mitigate a larger claim. So the policyholder doesn't pay as much for their insurance
Yeah.
because now they're taking steps to mitigate it. The insurance company doesn't have to raise the rates because they're lessening the chances of larger claims. And it's a much more proactive way to operate. So instead of insurance always being reactive and coming in after something has happened, now technology is giving them that opportunity to say, hey, if you change this, or if you just monitor this aspect of your house, or there's a device, I think I can't, maybe it's if it's Ting or something else, but there's one device that can tell if there is a power surge in your house.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
to identify, and I heard at the conference last week, they were saying the company said that if they had tracked all of the surges around a large area, they could have seen that there was an issue with the power company and warned them so that they could have shut the power off before some of the wildfires.
Yeah.
So think about that in
Yeah.
those terms. And
That is
that is just
true.
a very small household device.
Yeah. And it's available now. Like
Yes,
there's
yes,
technology
it
like
is.
that now.
Yep,
It's just a
it's
matter of
there. Yep,
getting the word out. So that's great that you're
right.
covering that.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. For keeping us safe, Patty.
yeah.
Um, so so just the last topic, just in terms of
Mhm.
talent gaps and talent in the insurance industry. Um, what do you think the insurance industry is sort of doing a good job, trying to bring talent in? I know you talked about the universities. Do you think, like, how is that? How is that working? How are you seeing?
They are trying to do that, and some of them are getting really creative and smart in terms of how they're going after talent. Um, I mentioned that Travelers has been going after a number of folks like in the STEM schools. And they've identified the top schools, and that's who they're trying to recruit from because
Yeah,
they understand the importance of having people who can work with data, who are comfortable with it, who are comfortable with technology. But along the same lines, they're also trying to upskill and reskill a lot of their employees so that they're comfortable with using data. And if you think about it, we now have 4 generations in the workforce. And so there's a lot to learn from
yeah,
each other. And I think that carriers are just trying to figure out different ways to recruit people. So whether it's somebody who's coming out of the military and looking for another career, because insurance offers everybody a second chance at a career, no matter what your interests are. There
yeah,
is something that will line up with whatever your existing skill set is.
yeah.
So, but I do know that
So
they are
interesting.
actively trying to recruit that next generation of insurance professionals.
And so, I guess to close out, we've done a good job, covered a lot. We covered a lot of questions, Patty. So just to close, so a piece of advice to give emerging insurance leaders.
So I would say that you need to know what's going on in the industry, and for both for you, and keep your teams apprised of what's going on too. You need to know like what are the pain points are. If they're introducing new technology, you need to know if there are issues with that sooner rather than later. And I think one of the most important skills for any leader is to ask questions and then listen to the answers. Because
Yes.
if you ask the questions and you don't listen to the response, you're kind of only getting half of it right.
That is a big skill. It's listening. Yeah, I know. That's the listening is that's your skill, right?
So,
Okay, so we're ready to listen to the crowd here. We would love to hear your questions. And I have to say, my colleague Anna Mashandaro, she came to the office today. I just wanted to thank her on a Friday. We don't usually come in, but she came in to sit next to me, and she's curated your questions.
Okay.
I just want to say, and I'm very appreciative.
Mhm.
Okay, so the first question is, what advice would you give to a young person who's interested in a career in the insurance industry as a potential first step?
Ooh, I would probably recommend, there are so many different ways to do that. You could definitely do an internship with an insurer, and I
Yeah,
think that is probably the very best way to get into the industry because internships are curated specifically to expose you to a number of different departments within an insurer. And then you can decide, oh, I like underwriting, or, oh, maybe I want to be in the cybersecurity. Like, there are just so many different opportunities. So going in through an internship is probably the best way to see how that'll work. And then I will say 9 times out of 10, anybody who's good, the insurer is going to offer you a job afterwards.
yeah,
So,
for sure. I know. I was so excited. I was away with a group of girlfriends, and my
mhm.
friend told me her daughter has an internship, and she has no idea that I do anything with insurance. But she mentioned that her daughter has an internship in cyber insurance. I've been telling people, I always tell young people who have anything interested in technology and finance,
Yep,
you should do that. It is the coolest thing to do. And
it
so
is.
she has an internship. I'm like, wow, she is definitely set. She's going to have a great career. So I was happy to hear. I think that, the shift might be starting. Um, okay, this is a totally off question, but I have to ask because it's like a very timely topic. What are you hearing? Is anyone talking about tariffs? And it's like,
Yes.
yes, okay.
And
What are
and
they
it's interesting because we've
saying?
been my entire team, we've been talking to people about it. We've heard a number of things. It's something that we're watching. Um, a lot of the carriers feel like there could be an impact. They don't expect it to be maybe for 6 to 12 months. And like I was doing questions for an interview to somebody on the tariffs, no lie, from the time I started writing the questions to when I was finished, and we are talking 5 questions, things had changed.
Yeah,
And so I think carriers feel like there could be an impact. I think the more immediate impact is going to be if you have a car and you have an accident and there are parts that, you have to buy car parts, or if we have a really active hurricane season and all of a sudden there are a lot of homes and businesses that need to be rebuilt.
yeah,
What happens is that the cost of those supplies will go up, and then your insurance policy coverage will max out sooner than expected. So I don't think that carriers will be raising their rates immediately. I think they're still kind of waiting to see how things shake out. I was watching the news today and someone was saying, we could see some shortages like we saw during COVID. That's a possibility. I think it's the reality is just that there could be an increase in costs. And so if
yeah,
you have $100,000 coverage on your for your home, it'll just max out faster. So and
yeah,
then it will cost the policyholders more.
yeah. See, you're
Could
you're
be
you're
cool
you're
or
right on
wash.
you're right on the edge of everything that's happening. I know what you're saying. Things are moving so quickly, and that's what we're hearing too. Is just that, you have to you have to stay on top of it. To your point of like
Yeah.
knowing
Yeah.
what's going on. Okay, next question. You mentioned that some of the women leaders you've spoken with have had really amazing mentors. What are your recommendations on how to identify, find a mentor, or how someone could be a good mentor to others?
This is one of my favorite topics because I have been mentoring women in different ways, probably for about 30 years. And there are a couple of ways to find a mentor. What I would recommend is if you meet someone and you feel like you have a relationship or that you have things in common with them and you feel comfortable with them, don't be shy about asking a woman if she would be willing to mentor you. Um, she may say, "Yes, I have time," and mentorship looks different for everybody. Depending on where you are in your career, maybe it's that you just touch base with somebody once a month,
Hmm.
just to say, "These are the things that I'm going through," or "I have had this amazing opportunity. What do you think I should do? How should,
Yeah,
and just having somebody else who will listen and help you talk it through and weigh the pros and cons makes a huge difference. And it's, maybe and it doesn't always have to be somebody that you work with. It could be
Right.
somebody at another company. It just needs to be someone that you feel safe with and who will respect that relationship. And look at the careers that they have had. Look at what they have done. Look at where they spend their time and their talents. And then that will kind of help you decide, who you might want to ask to have be a mentor.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think it's like just finding like different connection points. And even I just remember one time you sent me such a nice email just thanking me, for our working relationship. And that just had so much of an impact. I feel like that was that was sort of like a turning point where it was just like sometimes just, you know, showing someone appreciation, saying thank you. And like, that's almost like looking for those like little bright spots in someone, and you get that little spark from someone and, run with it, if you get that spark, which is so nice.
And what I will say for women who are concerned about being mentors, you will learn as much from the person you
Yeah,
mentor as they learn from you. It is very much a two-way street, and it is just they can be really sweet relationships.
for
So,
sure. For sure. Okay. Next question. So what has been the biggest takeaway from your journalism career so far?
ooh, wow. Um, Probably the biggest thing is don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to cover like for me, that has been a huge part of it. I have been willing to try new and different things. And like when I made the leap from PC 360 to here, it's like, wow, technology. Okay. I know a lot, but you learn when you push yourself and you're willing to expose yourself to new opportunities. I think that is when you learn the most and when you grow the most. And that I have seen that time and time again. The other thing I will say is that when bad things are happening, just remember it's not forever. It is only for a small period of time in your life.
Yeah. That's a good one. That is very, very encouraging and very, very true. So I think we covered a lot of the questions. It's been so nice being with you, Patty, and it's nice. I was just looking at who's here. So hi, everybody. It's great to see all of you here, and please, stay tuned for some of our upcoming webinars. We'd love to see you again. And thank you, Patty, for your time, and thank
Oh,
you
thank you
everyone
so
for
much for
joining.
having me. This was just such a privilege. And I want people to love this industry and I want them to see the possibilities. So seeing it grow and change is very exciting.
Yeah, it is. It is. I'm right there with you. All right. Well, thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. So great to see you all. Okay.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.